In a busy Walmart on an ordinary evening, a routine act of security quickly spiraled into something far more sinister. A woman was caught with stolen goods, yet by the time police arrived, the truth was no longer clear. Whispers spread, accusations shifted, and a man's life hung on the edge of perception. Darius had worked security at Walmart for almost 4 years. He wasn't the kind of man who looked for trouble. He just wanted to do his job, collect his paycheck, and go home to his little apartment on the east side of town. He was known by many of the shoppers, a tall black man with a calm voice and steady eyes. If a kid ran through the aisles, he'd smile and shake his head. If an old lady needed help with groceries, he'd walk her to the car. But on this Friday evening, things were different. The store was packed. People rushed in and out, loading carts before the weekend. Darius stood near the self-checkout, scanning the crowd the way he always did. That's when he noticed her. A white woman, maybe late 20s, wearing a loose gray hoodie and jeans. Her eyes darted left and right, not in the way most shoppers looked around, but sharp, nervous glances. Darius knew that look. He'd seen it many times. Shoplifters always gave themselves away. He followed her at a distance, not wanting to scare her off too soon. She picked up a box of cosmetics, slipped it under her hoodie. Then a pair of headphones disappeared into her bag. Darius felt his chest tighten. Company rules were clear. Once you see it, you act. As she tried to leave through the side exit, Darius stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said firmly, blocking the door. "I'm going to need you to come with me." Her eyes widened. "Get out of my way," she snapped, clutching her bag. Darius shook his head. "You've got items in there you didn't pay for." In that moment, she tried to shove past him. Instinct kicked in. He grabbed her wrist, pulling her back. She twisted, yelling out loud. The commotion drew eyes from customers nearby. A man stopped pushing his cart, staring. A mother with 2 kids froze mid-step. Darius tightened his hold, keeping his voice calm. "Stop resisting. Just wait here until the police arrive." But she wasn't giving up. She thrashed, screamed, "Let me go. You're hurting me." Her voice was sharp enough to make people stare harder. Darius held firm, pressing her down just enough so she couldn't run. He wasn't rough, but he knew how bad it looked. Him, a big black man in uniform, holding down a struggling white woman near the exit of a Walmart. Within minutes, someone had already called the police. The flashing red and blue lights came fast, washing over the glass doors of the store. Relief washed through Darius for a split second. Finally, this would be over. But the woman's cries changed everything. As the officers rushed inside, she shouted the words that froze the air around them. "He was touching me. He was trying to force himself on me." The crowd gasped. The cop's expressions shifted instantly. Darius felt his stomach drop like a stone. Welcome to Black Community Stories. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch stories. One of the officers, a tall white man with a stern jaw, shoved Darius back, barking, "Step away from her. Hands where I can see them." Darius raised his hands, heart pounding. "What? No, that's not what happened. She was stealing." "Quiet," the officer snapped. He turned to the woman, who was now trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks as if she had just escaped some nightmare. "Ma'am, are you okay? Did he put his hands on you inappropriately?" "Yes," she sobbed, nodding quickly. "He held me down. He was touching me. I told him to stop." The whispers in the crowd grew louder. Some people looked at Darius with shock. others with disgust. He could feel the judgment burning into his skin. "Officer, I didn't do any of that," Darius said, his voice shaking but firm. "Check the cameras. She was stealing. I was doing my job." But the way the cops looked at him told him something terrifying. His word might not matter. Before we dive in deeply, let us know in the comments what country or which city you're watching this story from. We'd love to know how far this story travels. The cold metal of the officer's hand pressed against Darius's chest as he was forced a step backward. He kept his hands high, his palms open, trying to show he wasn't a threat. "Sir, calm down and stay right there," the second officer ordered, already reaching for his cuffs. Darius's voice broke with frustration. "Calm down? I'm the one who stopped her from stealing. Check her bag. Just check it before you lay a hand on me." But the white woman's crying drowned him out. She clutched her hoodie tighter, hiding her bag from view, her body trembling so hard her words came out in sobs. "He grabbed me. He wouldn't let me go. I begged him." The crowd was eating it up. Darius could hear the whispers. "Lord, look at him, big as a tree, holding her down." She said he touched her. "That's disgusting." "Man, I shop here every week, and I always thought he was nice." Darius scanned the faces around him, hoping at least one person would step forward and tell the truth. But all he saw were uncertain eyes, the kind of looks people gave when they didn't want to get involved. "Officer?" Darius tried again, his voice firmer now. "There are cameras right above us. Everything is recorded. If you pull the footage, you'll see she was shoving stolen items into her hoodie. I didn't touch her like that." The taller cop frowned but didn't answer. The other one, stockier with a shaved head, sneered. "Funny how that's always the story. A woman's in tears accusing you, and you want us to believe she made it up while you just happened to be holding her down." "I was restraining her until you got here," Darius snapped, unable to keep the anger from his tone. "That's literally my job." The officer's eyes narrowed. "Watch your tone." The woman took her chance, clinging to the taller cop's arm. "Please," she whimpered, "don't let him near me again. I thought I was going to die back there." Her words hit the air like poison, twisting the scene. The shoppers murmured louder now. A man even pulled out his phone and started filming, pointing it directly at Darius. Darius's heart slammed against his ribs. He could already imagine how that video would look online. No sound, no context. Just him standing over a crying white woman while cops held him back. The truth would disappear before it even left his mouth. The taller cop spoke into his radio, calling for backup, his other hand resting near his holster. "Dispatch, we may have a 10. 16 here. Possible assault. Need confirmation on cameras." Darius blinked. Assault. His throat went dry. The store manager, a short, balding man in a blue vest, finally appeared from the office, jogging over with worry etched across his face. "What's going on here?" he asked, looking between Darius and the cops. "Your guard here's being accused of sexually assaulting a customer," the stocky officer said flatly. The manager's jaw fell open. "What? No, Darius wouldn't. He's one of my best." But the woman's sobs cut him off. "You weren't there. He pinned me down. He put his hands all over me." The manager hesitated, his eyes darting between the officers and the crying woman. Darius caught that look. It wasn't belief. It was fear. Fear of the police, fear of making the wrong statement in front of a customer accusing one of his staff. Let's all calm down," the manager stammered, There are cameras. We can pull the footage." The taller cop gave a short nod. "Do it. Now." As the manager hurried back towards the security office, Darius stayed frozen, every second stretching like a rope tightening around his neck. The stocky cop kept staring at him, his hand never leaving his belt. The woman, meanwhile, was still weeping against the taller officer's shoulder, her voice shaking. "I was just trying to shop, and he came out of nowhere. He scared me so bad." Darius could feel his control slipping, like sand falling through his fingers. He wanted to scream. He wanted to point at the cameras himself, drag everyone to the monitors and hit play, but he knew one wrong move, one raised voice, and it could all end in a way he'd never walk away from. The store felt like it wasn't Walmart anymore. It felt like a courtroom, and he was already standing trial. The minutes stretched on. The crowd didn't move. Phones stayed up, recording. Then from the back office, the manager reappeared, his face pale, lips pressed into a thin line. And in that moment, Darius knew something about to shift again. The store manager's shoes squeaked against the tiled floor as he returned, clutching a small folder of printed images. His face was pale, his hands trembling slightly. The entire crowd seemed to lean forward as he stopped in front of the officers. Darius swallowed hard. This was it. The truth was about to speak for him. "Did you check the footage?" the taller officer asked, his tone clipped. The manager nodded, licking his lips nervously. He opened the folder and held out the first print. "These are stills from the camera, above the self-checkout and the exit door." Everyone's eyes flicked to the paper. The grainy black and white shot clearly showed the woman stuffing a pair of headphones into her hoodie. Another still showed her slipping a box of cosmetics into her bag. A wave of whispers shot through the crowd. "She did steal," someone muttered. Relief flooded Darius for a second. Finally, proof. He raised his voice, trying to catch the officer's eyes. "See, I told you. She was shoplifting. That's why I stopped her." But the woman's act didn't falter. She clung to the officer's sleeve, shaking her head violently. "He's lying. He planted those on me after he grabbed me. Please, you have to believe me. I was terrified." The taller cop's expression stayed flat, unreadable. The stocky one, however, smirked. "She's saying you assaulted her and tried to cover it up with theft claim. That happens." "That's insane," Darius barked, his voice cracking with the weight of panic. He gestured toward the manager. Tell them you saw it. Tell them the footage doesn't lie." The manager hesitated. His eyes darted between the officers and the woman, then landed on Darius. For a moment it looked like he might defend him, but then he shifted uncomfortably, tucking the folder against his chest. I just pulled the stills. The officers will have to review the full video themselves." Darius's chest caved. The one man who could have spoken with confidence had just backed out. The taller officer finally moved, stepping closer to Darius. "Turn around, hands behind your back." "What?" Darius blinked. His whole body went rigid. "You saw the proof. She was stealing. I didn't assault anyone." "Sir, this isn't up for debate," the officer said coldly. "Turn around." The crowd gasped as the stocky cop pulled out his cuffs, snapping them open with a metallic click. Darius's mind raced. His hands twitched in the air, but he forced them back down. He knew if he resisted, even a little, it would spiral. He could already see the headlines. "Security guard resists arrest after assault allegation." "Listen to me." Darius said, his voice desperate, trembling. "There are full videos. Cameras don't lie. You can't just—" But the woman cut him off, her scream sharp enough to pierce the air. "Don't let him touch me again. Please, I'm begging you." The taller cop grabbed Darius's arm, twisting it behind his back. Pain shot through his shoulder as the cuff locked around his wrist. "Sir, you're being detained pending investigation," the officer said, his tone like stone. The sound of the crowd erupted again. Some people muttered, "Good, get him out of here." Others whispered, but the cameras showed her stealing. Phones kept recording, capturing every second. Darius clenched his jaw, forcing himself to stay calm even as his pulse thundered in his ears. He looked up and caught sight of a little girl sitting in a cart, staring wide-eyed at him. Her mother quickly turned the cart around and wheeled her away. The humiliation burned deeper than the cuffs. As the officers began to lead him toward the doors, the manager followed, wringing his hands. "Wait. Wait. Officers. Shouldn't we wait until the video is reviewed in full? Maybe we should—" "Sir, we'll take it from here." The stocky officer cut him off, his voice curt. The woman wiped her face dramatically, her tears still flowing as she limped a few steps behind them, acting as though she had survived an attack. Some shoppers reached out to comfort her, patting her shoulder, whispering sympathy. Darius glanced back once, his eyes locking with hers. For a split second, her expression changed. The fear melted into something else, something cold, calculating. A tiny, victorious smirk curved at the corner of her lips before she quickly buried her face again into her hands. His stomach twisted. She knew exactly what she was doing. As the automatic doors slid open and the night air hit his face, Darius realized his life had just shifted into a storm he wasn't ready for. The night outside Walmart was thick and heavy, the parking lot buzzing with flashing red and blue. Darius could hear the hum of curious voices behind him as more people poured out the doors to watch. The cuffs bit into his wrists with every step. The stocky officer pushed him toward the squad car. "Watch your head," he said flatly, almost mocking. Darius stopped short, planting his feet. "You can't do this. You've got proof she stole. Proof I didn't touch her like that." The taller officer tightened his grip on Darius's arm. "Sir, you're not in a position to argue. Let the system handle it." The system. The word sent a cold shiver down his spine. He had seen how the system handled men who looked like him. The woman stood a few feet away, wrapped in a blanket one of the officers had given her, still crying into her hands. To the crowd, she looked fragile, broken. But Darius remembered that smirk, the flicker of victory she thought no one had seen. "Check the footage," Darius shouted, his voice echoing across the lot. "You're arresting the wrong person." Some people shifted uncomfortably. A man holding his phone murmured, "He's right. I saw the pictures. She had stuff in her bag." But he didn't move forward, didn't raise his voice. The taller officer shoved Darius down into the back seat of the squad car. The door slammed shut, muffling the outside noise. Through the tinted glass, Darius could still see faces pressed close, filming, whispering, judging. He was no longer the man who stopped thefts. He was the man in cuffs, the man accused. Inside the car, the silence pressed down on him. His chest heaved, sweat beading on his forehead. He rested his cuffed hands awkwardly against the seat, his eyes locked on the front windshield. Every second felt like a nail being hammered into his future. The manager rushed over to the officers, speaking quickly. Darius couldn't hear all the words, but he caught fragments. Good employee, never had trouble before. Cameras don't lie. The stocky officer shook his head. We'll review it downtown. She's making a serious accusation. We can't ignore it. Darius slammed his cuffed hands against the window, his voice muffled through the glass. Review it here. You don't need to drag me anywhere. Nobody listened. The woman walked closer to the squad car, her blanket pulled tight around her shoulders. She peered through the glass at Darius, her tear-streaked face tilted in mock sorrow. But her eyes, those eyes, glittered with something dark. You'll regret this, she mouthed, so quietly only he could read it. Then she turned away, collapsing against the taller cop as though she might faint. Rage boiled in Darius's chest. He wanted to kick the door, to scream until every person outside heard the truth. But he knew how it would look. The aggressive suspect, thrashing in the back of the police car. The ride to the station started with the taller officer sliding into the driver's seat. The engine rumbled to life. The lights outside Walmart blurred as they pulled away, leaving the crowd behind. Darius leaned his head back, his mind spinning. He thought of his mother, who always warned him, "Don't give them a reason to see you as dangerous. Don't raise your voice. Don't fight back." He thought of his rent, his job, everything that could be stripped away in the blink of an eye. The city lights passed in streaks, but the silence inside the car was heavier than chains. The taller cop didn't say a word. The stocky one glanced back once, his smirk barely hidden in the mirror. Finally, Darius broke the silence. "You know I didn't do what she said. You've got cameras, witnesses. You know this isn't right." The stocky cop chuckled. "Doesn't matter what I know. It's what she says, and right now, she says you're the monster." The words cut deep, slicing through the thin thread of hope Darius still clung to. When they reached the station, the bright lights of the building poured over the car. The doors clicked open, and hands pulled Darius out, guiding him through the entrance. Officers at the front desk looked up as he was marched past, some with curiosity, some with pity. They led him down a narrow hallway that smelled of disinfectant and old paper. The sound of doors buzzing open echoed around him, each one shutting with a heavy thud. Darius's mind screamed. This wasn't supposed to happen. He had done his job. He had protected the store. And now he was trapped in something much bigger than him, something built on lies. The last door opened into a small gray interrogation room, a table, 2 chairs, and a camera in the corner, staring down like an unblinking eye. The cuffs came off, but his wrists still throbbed with the memory of steel. "Sit," the taller officer ordered. Darius lowered himself into the chair, his heartbeat pounding like drums in his ears. The door shut behind them with a click that felt final. And that was when Darius realized his fight was only just beginning. The gray walls of the interrogation room pressed in on Darius like a cage. He sat still, his fists clenched tight against his thighs, trying to steady his breathing. The buzzing fluorescent light overhead flickered, humming like a cruel reminder of where he was. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours before the door opened again. A detective stepped in, older, calm, with reading glasses slipping down his nose. He carried a slim file in one hand and placed it on the table before sitting opposite Darius. The taller officer leaned against the wall, arms crossed. The stocky one hovered near the door, his smirk still fixed in place. The detective opened the file, flipping through a few pages before speaking. Darius Johnson, security officer at Walmart. No prior arrests, no incidents on record. Manager describes you as dependable. Customers generally had no complaints. That sound about right. Darius nodded stiffly. Yes, sir. The detective glanced over his glasses. And yet tonight, we have a woman claiming you restrained her inappropriately, that you touched her in a sexual manner. Darius leaned forward, his voice low but firm. That's a lie. She was stealing. I stopped her, like I've been trained to. The cameras will be reviewed in full. The detective interrupted, holding up a hand. But here's the problem. Right now, it's her word against yours, and she's already given a very detailed statement. The words hung heavy in the air. Darius could almost feel the weight of them pressing him down. She's lying, he said again, his jaw tight. Please, look at the footage. You'll see exactly what happened. The detective sighed, shutting the file. He turned to the officers. Do we have the complete video yet? The taller cop shook his head. Tech team's pulling it. Could take time. The stocky one scoffed. Don't need footage to see what's obvious. Look at him. Big guy like that. She never stood a chance. Darius's blood boiled. He slammed his hand against the table, making the detective flinch. Obvious. What's obvious is she got caught stealing and is trying to save herself by lying, and you're helping her. Watch your tone, the stocky cop snapped, stepping forward. The detective raised his hand sharply. Enough, both of you. He looked at Darius again, studying him with a longer, quieter stare. Something in his eyes softened, just a little. If what you say is true, the cameras will clear you. But you need to stay calm, understand? You lose your temper in here. You lose everything. Darius sank back into the chair, breathing hard. He wanted to trust that. He wanted to believe the truth would win out. But he also knew the world didn't always work that way. Hours later, after endless waiting, the detective returned with a USB stick in hand. He slid it into the small monitor in the room. The grainy footage rolled. First, the woman sliding cosmetics into her hoodie, then the headphones, then her attempt to push past Darius. The recording showed him restraining her, firm, controlled, not violent. No wandering hands, no inappropriate contact, just a guard doing his job. The room was silent. The detective leaned back, folding his arms. Doesn't look like sexual assault to me. Darius exhaled, his whole body sagging with relief. But before he could speak, the stocky officer muttered. Maybe he knew where the cameras were and kept it out of view. The detective shot him a sharp glare. Enough. The footage is clear. Release him. The cuffs came off for good this time. Darius rubbed his sore wrists. The skin marked red. His eyes burned, not just from exhaustion, but from the knowledge of how close he had come to losing everything. As he stood, the detective gave him one final look. You got lucky. The cameras told the truth tonight. But out there, he nodded toward the city beyond the walls. Truth doesn't always win first. Be careful. Darius walked out of the station into the cool night air. He wasn't free in his heart. Not really. The memory of her smirk, the eyes of the crowd, the way everyone believed her without a second thought. It would never leave him. Because in that moment back at Walmart, he had seen just how quickly the world could flip, how a hero could become a suspect, how a lie could weigh more than the truth. And deep down, Darius knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of how people would see him from now on. The end. Please like and subscribe for more rich stories like this. Comment below. Also, if you really loved this video and want to support the channel directly, you can hit that super thanks button below.